Hiya Mark, thanks for the follow-up footage. It's nice to see that things are progressing nicely. In relation to the previous session that we had, the changes that you've made at P1 are much improved. We've got a right leg here that's less kinked in than before. As a result, we've got less side bend to the right, as can be seen by the rear view and also the face-on view. Still a little bit too much right tilt for my like here. But again, the hips are well forward, the waist well forward, so we'll let that slide a little bit. But less right side tilt at setup, right hip not quite as low, right leg straighter as a result of the right foot being flured out a touch more, and the right knee not being quite as kinked in. And again, it's something that you could consider just a tweak to that setup, is just get that right knee out over the right ankle just a fraction more, just to tidy things up. Having said that, if we take a little look at the knock-on effect we have here now, the right hip is able to get higher sooner than what we were seeing in the previous session. So the previous session, the right hip was struggling to get up as well as back during the takeaway. As you can see there now from P1, right hip working up and back nicely. As a result, there's a little bit less of a tendency to drift off the golf ball from P1 to P2, and we're able to get the hands working in a touch sooner, and the left shoulder now is working down a little bit more. Previously the left shoulder was much higher at P2 or P2.5 as we've got there. Now it's in a much more appropriate position. Could still work the left shoulder down more. Remember what we're trying to get. We're trying to get that situation where we make a stable turn around a fixed point with a constant inclination. And you can see there, as I get you to the top, there's a tendency to just move up and out of that box. Much less than with your previous footage. So well done in that respect. But still a little tendency that we could just reduce. So, you know, get that left shoulder working down. Feel like the left knee, let me just play this back from face on, is working out towards the target line more from P2.5 to P4. You can see as we do that, I'm just going to zoom in on your legs. 2.5 to 4, the left knee moves in a lot. So we're turning, but we're not necessarily working that left shoulder down sufficiently. As discussed previously, it's a linkage system. You've got the way the knees work will affect the way the hips work, and the way the hips work will affect the way the shoulders work, and that will in turn affect the hand path, etc. So from P2.5 there's a tendency to just, the left knee is flexing forward at this point towards the target line, and the right leg is straightening, and the right hip is working up, which is allowing you to side bend to the left, left tilt, turn and extend. From P2.5 there's a tendency to that left knee start drifting in, and that's when we see, we look at it from down the line, we see the right hip start to work back maybe a little bit excessively, and the left shoulder to start to work up. Get rid of that line in green. So P1 to P2, left shoulder working down, shoulders turning on a tilted angle at 90 degrees to our inclination. Now as that left knee starts to work in, the left shoulder doesn't work down sufficiently, and the shoulders now aren't turning quite at 90 degrees to our inclination. So only a little change, but something that can help you continue to improve that super P4 position that you've got. Now then, big change, as you said, that's needed in your email, and you know what you've got to do. It's just understanding how to go about doing it and buying into the fact that the flex forward doesn't need to continue from P4 to P7. So what we see here with yourself at the start of your downswing is that stable inclination and stable axis that we've achieved on the way back is now compromised as we go down way too much. Now I will accept that there is a lowering and a slight loss of inclination, P4 to P5 with a lot of really good players, but it's not excessive. See Charlie there, comes off that wall and touch. So we're allowed a little bit of movement, but not as excessive as you've seen with yourself. So that right side that's expanded on the way back now starts to flex forward. So Charlie's going to get his knees, his ankle and his hips back into its address flex, and he's going to get his upper body back into its address flex. And by about P5.75, Charlie now is back into his forward flexion that he established at P1. With yourself, we get back into flexion way too soon, particularly with the upper body. Too much flexing forward, and by P5.75 we're way too flex forward. From there now we stay in that flex forward position, and we really struggle to get the club coming out the ground, and this really is going to rob you of power as well as accuracy. So we need to work on this. One of the things you tend to do when you flex forward too much is you start to divide the elbows as you're coming through the hitting area, as a way of bringing the club out of its descent. So if you look at the difference, and this is something we talked about in the previous session, I do believe, the difference between the gap in the elbows at P1 in red to P7 in green. There's a dividing of the elbows, flexing forward too much, you can see as you come through at P8, the tilt of the eyes is starting to go. There's no extension in the neck, there's very little extension in the upper body. The right knee's flex, there's a lot of flexion going on here. We've got some flexion in the foot, so things just aren't extending. What we see with Charlie as he comes through is everything now is going to straighten up. You can see the ankle straightening, the knee straightening, the pelvis is extending, the thoracic is extending. So everything as he comes through now, the eye tilt's been maintained, the neck has started to extend if we're looking from face on, the upper spine is extended, the pelvis has started to extend again, the right knee is extended, and you can see that even the ankle and the foot have started to extend. So there's a straightening up on the way through that we don't get with yourself. Too much flexion being maintained. So the things I'd like you to do really, Mark, are as follows. It's really a lot of work. I'm just going to find one of my pupils on here who was working on a similar thing. I'll show you the drill that I gave him whilst working on this. So this is one of the drills that I want you to work on. Okay, Alan was struggling to maintain his inclination, so what we've got here is we've got his arms hanging in front of his body, and he's got to keep his head on that wall. You can see if he was to flex forward excessively from P4 to P5.75, P6 shall we say, then his head would move down this wall and into it. So be very aware of what's going on. So what I would suggest you do is spend some time making some swings here away from the range or at the range in between shots where the head is up against the wall. You don't need a club to do this, and just get a feel for the sequence of moves required to go from P4, top of the backswing, to P8 when the shaft or the arms are parallel to the floor on the way through. And if your head stays on the wall, excuse me, then you are right tilting, extending and turning at the correct rate. Remember what you've got to do from the top of your backswing. You've got to flex back forward, you've got to get some right tilt going in there, getting rid of the left tilt, back into forward flexion before extending again on the way through. And that's what you've got to do to maintain your inclination to the ground and a stable axis. So when you're doing this exercise, do it nice and slowly, but put your attention on P4 to P6. Because at the moment, from P4 to P6, the woodcutter drill will be chopped down and we get back into flexion is way too excessive. So too much forward flexion coming into impact, and there's no way we're going to get that club coming out the ground from that point on. So that's drill number 1. Drill number 2 is to work on keeping the elbows together and tidy up these tilts that we see from face on. So what I want you to do here is set up as normal with something like a 6 or a 7 iron, and then preset your impact position. Move the weight forward, move the handle forward, and then just make some little swings, focusing on keeping the arms straight, keeping the elbows together, and tucking the hips. Arms straight, elbows together, tuck the hips. That's going to give you more extension in the lower body, more extension in the upper body, and start to improve your eye tilts and your neck tilts as you come through the golf ball. And this is going to teach you the second piece. Back into flexion. Drill number 1 over here. P4 to P6. We want to get back into flexion, not too much. So that's the drill that's going to allow you to feel the appropriate rate at which you get back into the forward bend. And then this drill is going to teach you how to get the club to come out of its descent appropriately. So we're going to push up off the ground, tucking the hips, keeping the arms straight, and continuing to extend from P6 to P8 or P9. So hopefully that makes sense to you. It's a really good swing. You've just got to tidy up what's going on and the sequencing from P4 to P8, and things are going to come on leaps and bounds. Great to hear that your swing is coming on. Great to hear that your scores are coming down, because ultimately that's the main goal. And I look forward to charting your progress and hearing from you again. As I said, if you have any questions, don't stand up to ceremony. Feel free to email them across to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Winter well, keep in touch. I look forward to working with you further in the coming months. Well done.